중학교를 중퇴하고 16살에 스타트업을 세운 천재 해커, 성별을 바꾸면서 더 화제가 됐던 사람, 바로 오드리 탕입니다. 2016년 35살의 나이에 타이완의 디지털 담당 장관으로 임명됐습니다. 오드리 탕은 지난해 코로나19 발생 직후 민간 프로그래머와 협업해 3일 만에 마스크 앱을 만들어 배포한 주인공이기도 한데요. 마스크 판매 위치와 재고를 한눈에 볼 수 있어서 이후 세계 각국이 비슷한 시스템을 도입하게 됐죠. 이렇게 오드리 탕은 타이완이 코로나19 방역 선진국으로 불리는데 결정적인 역할을 했습니다. 실제로 타이완은 지난 5월과 6월 2달 동안 확진자가 급증한 것 외에 2년 동안 잠잠했는데요. 특히 오미크론 변이가 다시 찾아온 최근에도 타이완의 확진자 수는 한 자릿수입니다. 타이완의 코로나19 방역 정책 그리고 디지털 소통 방식에 대해 오드리 탕 장관에게 직접 물어봤습니다.
Last year, of course, we thought of the pandemic essentially having zero community transmission for many, many months. But this May, what we have seen is that the variant is much more viral than the previous versions of the same virus. And so just wearing masks and washing hands and keeping a safe physical distance no longer protects completely against the variants, even though that it could work against the previous version. And that's why, of course, we double down on our contact tracing efforts. The 1922 SMS-based contact tracing, for example, was introduced during that height, that peak. And with a lot of work by the contact tracers and people's general understanding that even though we did not have a lockdown, we voluntarily switched a lot of our offices to online communication and so on. So in just a few months, we're back now to essentially zero local community transmission for more than a month now. I understand that in Korea, there's also a QR code contact tracing system where the venue owner scans the QR code of the patron. But in Taiwan, it's the other way around. We use a SMS-based contact tracing method where the venue only have to print some posters and the venue patron do not need to download any app. They just point their built-in camera to that QR code, which sends a toll-free text message to the well-known toll-free number 1922, and that completes the check-in. And that allows us to shorten massively the contact tracing from previously more than 24 hours to now, I think it's less than 24 minutes for each infected case. It also helped us to fight off the Alpha and then later on the Delta variants. I think our vaccination uptake is very, very good after especially our first and real wave this year. When I remember when I got vaccinated on the first dose of AstraZeneca this April, nobody else wanted to get vaccinated. I had a lot of difficulty convincing my friends and family. Even my colleague refused to get vaccinated because they don't see a need for it. But after we rolled out especially the nationwide vaccine reservation platform, the 1922 VAS, then starting July, we've got basically almost immediately once a plane carrying the vaccines takes off, even before it lands to Taiwan, we will start the appointment process. And during the 7 days where it's being checked for safety, we already know in the next week who exactly will get those doses. So the nationwide vaccine appointment system really helped to get our vaccination rates as quickly as possible. That also helps to calm people down because people understand once you're vaccinated, even though you may be infected at some point in the future, it will probably not kill you. Yeah, we're just now relaxing it, right? Starting next week, what used to be centralized quarantine, like in quarantine hotels for 14 days, is being relaxed to 7 days in centralized quarantine and 7 days of home quarantine. Of course, we understand it's still quite strict by international standards, but now that our vaccination rate is high, we're now kind of relaxing it a little bit by a little bit. to give no trust is to get no trust. The CECC become trustworthy because they act on each actionable suggestions. And it doesn't need to be online, it doesn't need to be digital. It could be very analog, like there's a toll-free number, literally 1922. You can dial those 4 digits on a landline, on a normal phone, and even the very old people, the elderly, senior citizens, and the very young people. Basically, we bring the technology to where people are and co-design with them, co-create with them. We're not asking people to adapt to where the technology is. To me, open government means that we respond to the people in the here and now and respond in the way that's not just for the people, but with the people. But I do kind of co-creation also with my parents who are almost 70. My dad is turning 70 this year. And basically they all have a lot to contribute if you involve them early in the design. I'll use one example. For example, when we first done the mask rationing, my grandma said that her friends, her younger friends of around 80 years old, complained that they don't have a lot of stamina to queue in line. It is quite natural for me then to say, okay, so how would you do if you're in my position? And she's like, oh, maybe, just use your national health card as you would use in a pharmacy, in the teller machine. And because it's not linked to my bank account, there's no way for me to accidentally wire out my savings. And it's such a brilliant idea that we implemented exactly that. And she became very happy and served as a key opinion leader to convince the other, even younger friends, like 70 or 60 years old in her community. So I think this builds trust by trusting the citizens to feedback these actionable advices and shorten the iteration, the time takes from receiving the suggestion to act on the suggestion. Yes, it's every Wednesday at the Social Innovation Lab. But because, as I mentioned, we're now relaxing the quarantine rules a little bit, so we've not lowered the national epidemic level. So at this moment, like for this week, for a while, we are using online only for my office hours. But the rule is the same. Video recording or transcript must always be published, so the lobbyists, they can talk for 40 minutes, but they always make the case with the future generation in mind, because it will be all on the record for future generations to watch. And that makes the conversation much more pro-social and also pro-sustainability. So if we relax the nationwide alert further, then I look forward to resume the face-to-face office hour every Wednesday. The PDI's Public Digital Innovation Space is just another name for the Digital Minister's office, because Taiwan's digital ministry is slated to be created maybe sometime in the next year. Our parliament is still working on that. So what we are doing now in the cabinet office is not exactly a ministry, but an open space where around a dozen or so different ministries each send one secondment to my office. So it's cross-ministerial interagency. And also we enlist the equal number from the civil society to co-create with the career public service. So this hybrid model ensure that everybody have something to contribute and nobody is a superior rank to anyone else. Although maybe one section chief and another is department head, because they come from very different ministries, nobody is the other's superior. So it works in a truly voluntary association way, and will remain to be like this, because we really think digitalization is about all agencies, not just about one specific ministry. But of course, having a digital ministry also helps if there's a single kind of point of contact to talk about, for example, the internet governance and regulation issues. That's also very helpful. So my office focuses on the co-creation and the design part, and the future digital ministry will work more on the implementation part. like the young boy who called last April saying, "You're rationing out masks, but all I got was pink ones. I don't want to wear pink to school. All the boys in my class have blue masks." That resulted in the very next day, 2 p.m., all the medical officers wore pink, regardless of gender. And Minister Chen, our Central Epidemic Commander, even said the Pink Panther was his childhood hero. So basically, the boy became very hip, fashionable overnight because only he has the color that the heroes and heroes' hero wear. And then the fashion brands all joined the foray. We have pretty good 5G coverage now. So the answer is that whenever it's needed. And I also see that a lot of the more rural areas, which previously, or offshore islands, which previously had less access when it comes to fiber optic or the more previous generations of internet access, they are actually the first to receive 5G connectivity. So yeah, I think what we're now doing is not just deploying 5G for the consumer-oriented communications and so on, but also looking intently at what kind of social issues can 5G make a positive impact. Indeed, we reinvest the 5G spectrum auctions to enable the more rural areas to have, for example, telemedicine or even telesurgery, teleeducation and things like that based on this surplus that we have gained from the spectrum auctions. So the more rural you are, the more you actually use 5G. And that pattern, I believe, is very important to ensure social justice and equity. In the more rural areas, all our 5 major telecom carriers can share certain infrastructures so to make the cost more bearable. But also, more importantly, in Taiwan, we believe that education and healthcare and so on, it's the state's responsibility. So we have basically no need to provide so-called return of investment as long as there's social return of investment on that particular area. And we believe it's so strongly that we've declared for quite a while.